Good morning, everybody. My name is Sandra Ellis, and I'm a project manager with the Public Works Department. So my job and the job of my team is to protect all the stormwater in the city of Corpus Christi from pollution. So this is a really big job, and my team can't do it alone. So my presentation is going to be a little bit different than the other presentations you hear today because I'm here to ask for your help. So because my team is only 7 people, and because the city is so large, we need the help of every municipal employee, whether you're temporary or permanent, whether you're in an office or in the field. We need your help to keep stormwater clean in the city of Corpus Christi. So welcome to the city, and we'll go ahead and get started with the presentation. So the first thing you have to know if you're going to help my team protect stormwater is you need to know exactly what stormwater is. So on this slide, we can see a generalized description of the water cycle. And we can see that there's oceans, lakes, and streams. So in Corpus Christi, this would be represented by our bays and estuaries. So Corpus Christi Bay, Nueces Bay, Laguna Madre, and the Gulf of Mexico. And water from these large water bodies evaporates and condenses to form clouds. And then the clouds release the water as rain. And this rain can either filter into the ground and recharge groundwater resources, or it can flow over surfaces back into these large bodies of water like our bays and estuaries. So this surface runoff is also called stormwater runoff. It's also just called stormwater or sometimes just runoff. And these are all interchangeable terms that mean the same thing. So that's all that stormwater is. It's rainwater that's flowing over surfaces back into our bays. So in a city, you can see compared to the last slide, there's a lot of pavement and built structures. So the pavement includes things like streets and driveways, and built structures are things like houses, city hall, commercial buildings, industrial facilities. And because of all this pavement and built structures, there's fewer habitats that have natural ground cover. So there's less fields and forests, and this means that there's less chance for the water to filter back in and recharge groundwater resources, and there's more water that flows over surfaces as stormwater. So that means that in an urban environment, a city like Corpus Christi, there's more stormwater than in a natural environment. And this stormwater flows into our water bodies like our bays and estuaries, and it's not treated. So in the city of Corpus Christi, like in most other cities in the United States, wastewater goes from your house or commercial business or industrial facility to a wastewater treatment plant, and it's treated before it's discharged into our bays and estuaries. So this water is clean when it's discharged. But stormwater isn't treated. So stormwater is a separate system, and it does not go to a water treatment plant before it's discharged. And this means that anything that's on those surfaces, anything that's on our driveways or our roadways, can potentially be picked up by stormwater and is discharged directly into our bays and estuaries. So that leads us to stormwater pollution. So anything on these surfaces can potentially pollute stormwater. So some of these things are really obvious. So things like litter. Litter obviously can be picked up by rainwater and it will go directly to our bays and estuaries. Or chemicals that are spilled either accidentally or illegally on purpose. Leaking vehicles, so whether they're leaking oil or antifreeze or any chemical, that can also lead to stormwater pollution. But there's some things that are less obvious, so things like bare dirt and soil from construction sites can pollute stormwater, as can leaves, garden clippings and lawn clippings, animal feces, and improper use of pesticides and fertilizers can all pollute stormwater. So why do we care anyway? So why do we want to protect stormwater from all these pollutants? First and foremost, in Texas, we actually have one of the largest fisheries in the United States. It's the largest fishery by volume. Everything's bigger in Texas. So we want to protect our fishermen and our commercial fishing economy, and we can do that by keeping the water that the fish live in clean and healthy for the fish. We also have a large tourism industry, and this includes things like recreational fishing, but also going to our beaches. So it's important to have stormwater clean so that we can have clean beaches and clean water for our recreational fishermen. And then having clean stormwater also reduces flooding. Stormwater that has litter or other debris in it can cause flooding because the pipes become clogged with this debris. And so it's important to keep the pipes clean so that the infrastructure is clean and water can move through it smoothly so that there's less flooding. So now here comes my big ask. So how can you help keep stormwater clean? How can you help my team of 7 people do our jobs of keeping all the stormwater in the city of Corpus Christi clean? So there's a few simple ways that you can help us. So the first is don't litter. So like I said previously, if it's on the ground, it's going to either be blown by wind or picked up by rainfall and end up in our bays and estuaries. And you can also remember that your truck bed is not a trash can. I know many of us drive trucks, whether for work or at home. And if you put things that are loose, like loose cans or bottles or papers in your truck bed, there's a great chance that they will get blown out, and then that just becomes litter and it ends up in our bays and estuaries. So please don't litter. The next thing you can do is scoop the poop. So there's a lot of dogs in the city of Corpus Christi, and each dog makes about 275 pounds of waste each year. And that's a lot of dog waste. And this is a problem because that waste can contain bacteria, viruses, and parasites that can make us sick. And these bacteria and viruses and parasites, when it rains, will get washed into the water and end up in our bays. And actually, a few bodies of water, including the Corpus Christi Bay, have been designated by the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, or the state of Texas, and the federal government as having too many bacteria sometimes during the year. And they've required us to implement certain programs to help reduce the number of bacteria. And one of them is getting people to scoop the poop and help reduce the amount of dog waste that's left on the ground to help reduce these bacteria levels. It's also required by city ordinance, so even on private property, you are supposed to scoop the poop for your dog at least once a day. So the next thing you can do is put yard waste in its place. So this includes grass clippings and leaves. You know, when you cut your grass, the grass clippings can end up in the roadway, and this can actually cause water quality problems because when these grass clippings or leaves get washed into the water, they rot or decompose, and this process of rotting actually uses oxygen, and that means that there's less oxygen available for fish and oysters and shrimp and other wildlife that live in the water. So fish are mobile, and so they can swim away and leave the area. But things like oysters and shrimp, they can't travel. So they end up dying, and then they start to rot, and it's a positive feedback loop where we end up with these low oxygen levels in the water that can't support fish. Additionally, leaves and grass clippings can cause flooding because our pipes and infrastructure are not meant to carry these things. They're meant to only carry water. So it's important that if you are doing yard work, you blow the leaves or the grass clippings back onto your lawn or bag them up and throw them in the trash. And it's also important to know that it is against city ordinance to purposefully blow grass clippings or leaves into the street or curb and gutter. So it's also important to use fertilizers and pesticides properly if you do choose to use these products. So the main takeaway here is to always follow the directions on the label. They all have specific directions about how to use them for your specific application, so please read and follow the directions. Don't apply more than you need, and also please do not apply before rain falls. So in particular for fertilizers, often they say water them in on the fertilizer label, and when they say water it in, often they'll give an exact amount of water that's needed for the fertilizer to work the best. Unfortunately, if you rely on the rain to provide this water, you don't have control over where that water goes or how much the grass receives. And so often it will rain more than what your fertilizer requires to be watered in. And that means that the fertilizer is just going to be washed off your lawn and end up in our bays and estuaries. And unfortunately, that means you've wasted your money on a product that is now just in our bays rather than on your lawn doing the job that you want it to do. Lastly, you can also put household hazardous waste in its place. If you live in the city of Corpus Christi, you can take household hazardous waste to the J.C. Elliott Collection Center free of charge. Maximum container size is 1 gallon, and this includes things like leftover automotive fluids, pesticides and fertilizers, cleaners that you might have that you didn't use the whole container, any kind of chemical that you have around your house. And it's really important that you take these to the proper location to be disposed of and don't put them down the drain. If you put them down your wastewater drain, so your sink or your toilet, they can cause either clogs or they can also corrode your pipes and lead to expensive plumbing charges. And obviously we don't want these products going into the stormwater system because that's the same as just going out and pouring the oil or chemical or whatever directly into our bay. So it's really important that we dispose of these things properly. The easiest way to stop stormwater pollution is to prevent stormwater pollution in the first place. So please remember that only rain goes down the storm drain. So the storm drain is that cutout in the side of the sidewalk that you see, and only rain should go in there. You can also volunteer. So we host beach cleanups at least 3 times a year, and so please follow us on Facebook and you can find out about when our next beach cleanup is. And you can also lead by example. So you are all now city champions and you all work for the city of Corpus Christi, which means you're a leader in the community. And the best way to lead is by setting a good example for other people to follow. Your family and friends will look and see what you do and know that that's the right thing to do. So whether it's scooping the poop or scooping the leaves up after you do yard work, please try to lead by example as much as possible. And then if you see something, please do say something. So if you see someone pouring paint into the storm drain, or if you see someone blowing their leaves and garden clippings into the street, you can report this to the city call center at 826-2489.